Hey guys, my name is Mayukh Raj Gattu, and if you're not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe so you don't miss any uploads that I make. Anyway, today's topic is about the second part of the World War I series, so let's get started. So now we'll learn a bit more about trench warfare and what it exactly is, and we'll also see what armies did in this year of the war. So on the Western Front, armies now fought battles that lasted for literal months because of trench warfare. And trench warfare is basically when both sides make a continuous connected line of ditches with a metal wire in front of them to protect the army. Then, one trench attacks with rifles, while the other opposite trench defends with machine guns. And as a result, the attacking side is always in a massive disadvantage, which leads to many deaths for the attacking side. Now, Britain and France were mostly the attackers in trench warfare, as they were determined to liberate all the land that the Germans managed to capture. So they launched attacks on many places all along the Western Front and called it the Great Autumn Offensive, which led to many casualties for the British and French, while the Germans were not that affected, and both sides were still trying to find an answer to trench warfare. So on the left here is an image of what trench warfare should look like, and here on the right are some soldiers after the Great Autumn Offensive. So now, we will look at what Russia was doing in 1915. Russia retreated a huge amount of miles from the original border because Russia is having a lot of trouble supplying their soldiers on the long and bad roads, so they decided that they couldn't afford to spend such great resources to defend land that they can afford to lose. So in 1915, Russia retreated its army to make an almost perfect straight line to reduce pressure on the roads and to defend a shorter front line much more easily. And as we already discussed, Italy joined the side of the Entente and was now fighting Austria-Hungary in its mountains. Italy's main goal was to capture the city of Trieste, which had a lot of Italians in it and is a good port city. But the Italians have to cross the mighty Isonzo River, held by the great defenses made by the Austro-Hungarians. This would continue until 1917, where the Italians tried to beat the Austro-Hungarians 12 separate times, but failing every single time. This is due to the bad leadership of Italian General Luigi Cadorna. So in the end, 1915 was basically a bad year for the Entente, as they made huge offensives that didn't gain any type of land, but led to many deaths, while Russia was pushed back across a huge amount of territory. All this gave way to 1916, the bloodiest the war has gotten so far. So now, we will move on to 1916. So to start things off, in the month of February, the German army launched an attack on the important French city of Verdun, as it was very important to the French, and the Germans know this, so they planned to literally kill all the French soldiers that tried to defend this place. And at first, it looked like it was working, so the French called on the British to divert German attention. So the British started the Battle of the Somme to divert the Germans, and it worked, and the French managed to save the city. The Battle of the Somme was made to divert German attention from Verdun, and it worked, but the British suffered a lot of deaths during the battle, including 60,000 British lives on the first day of the battle. It is considered the bloodiest day in the entire British military history. The Somme also gave the British a lot of knowledge on how to fight on the Western Front, while taking the least number of lives as possible. On the left here, there are some French soldiers at the Battle of Verdun, and on the right, there are some British soldiers attacking at the Battle of the Somme. And around this time, the Russians saw that the French needed help at the Battle of Verdun, so they decided to launch an offensive against the Germans at Lake Narok, just like the British did at the Battle of the Somme. But the Battle of Lake Narok was a disaster, as the Russians lost 100,000 men, and the Germans lost only 20,000. After seeing the Lake Narok offensive end in disaster, Russian General Alexei Brusilov decided to do a huge offensive against the Austro-Hungarians instead of the Germans to keep the element of surprise. And the plan worked perfectly, as the Russians destroyed the Austro-Hungarian army, and the Germans had to divert a lot of materials from Verdun to the Eastern Front to help the retreating Austro-Hungarians. In fact, the offensive was such a success that many people considered this to be the worst crisis for the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So here are some Russian soldiers at the Lake Narok offensive on the left, and here are some German soldiers after the Brusilov offensive. Now we learn about Greece and the new Macedonian front. Greece was a neutral nation before the war and wanted to join the Central Powers, but after some fateful decisions, Greece decided to join the Entente and give permission for Entente soldiers to land in Greece and help the Greek army defend it. This became known as the Macedonian Front, and British, French, Serbian, and Greek soldiers all fought on the Allied side, while Bulgaria and Germany fought on the Central Powers side. So here's the Serbian army at the Macedonian front, and here are some Greek soldiers at the Macedonian front.